Lisa Olivieri. We are interviewing Dr. Marijane Peplow. Today is
January the 20th.
Thursday, January the 20th, 2011, and we'll get started now.
Okay.
Is that ready for you?
All right.
Wonderful. So maybe we'll start off with the first question of what brought you to SAIS?
Well, I lived in New Jersey then, had started going to the United Nations. Always. I started in high school going to the UN, became one of those people who was a gopher for Press International. And I had lots of interesting experiences at the UN and ran into all sorts of people, literally ran into Molotov one time, which wasn't so nice. And is there any way we can stop this at all?
Oh, we'll just keep going and things will...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know Gromiko was the one that I ran into running down a corridor to take something to somebody else from our press office. I went straight into him, and that certainly, we introduced each other, and we became that we'd see each other, and we noticed that we were seeing each other. And then I ran into Ibn Saud, only I didn't see him because he was a very tall man, and his whole robe just came around me. And I was feeling to see what I'd hit, which of course you're not supposed to do to somebody in royalty, certainly not the Arabic royalty. So I was sort of pulled out and held up by, one arm, and the guards came and explained what it was, because I was trying to explain to him, and I switched into French from English, because I think he knew French. But he was so upset with somebody, a young lady, hitting him. We'd see each other and go on one side of the corridor, and I'd go on the other side, just so we never got that close again. But anyway, I was looking to go to school, and I had looked into the one in New England, which I will not mention by name, and I came down to see SAIS, and one of my uncles was the New Hampshire senator, the senior senator, Giles Bridges. And I came here and I said, I want to go to SAIS because you were new in those days. So I said, and I really liked it better. I'd been up to the other one, and I didn't like it that much. It seemed too stodgy. It didn't seem to be very much involved. And I'd been going to the UN for years by that time. And I knew a lot of people there, and I knew the situation, so it was not very interesting for me. If I'd had my druthers, I would have been an astronomer. But since I was a girl, that was something. Carl Sagan, I told him once, I said, you were just lucky to be born a boy, because we knew each other from the UN and other things. So I came here, and I decided I would go to SAIS. Because also one thing that SAIS did not ask you to do was you didn't have to try and get somebody like Trygve Lie, the Secretary General of the UN, who would have given me a letter of reference, but I wanted to get in on my own merits. And that was very important to me. And I remember my uncle said, can't I write a letter for you? And I said, no, I don't want anybody to do that for me. I want to get in on my own merits or not. And even though I was accepted in the other one and accepted here, I came to Washington. So I was one of 8 girls that year, and there were 40 boys, and the boys could live over the school, and the girls had to live wherever they could, and there was 4 of us that got into a building near there. We were all going to SAIS, and so I had a roommate, and I always had to wake her up in the morning because she never could wake up. So anyway, I enjoyed SAIS very much, and of course I like Washington. I've lived here since then. I grew up around New York City, but I also grew up born in Pennsylvania, raised between Florida and New Hampshire. And I think still, I probably have some things that I sound like a New Englander. Also sound like a Jersey person on occasion. I don't know, are either one of you from Jersey? No. Anywhere there? No. Well, that maybe answers it, so I came here. You had something...
And then, what is your most vivid SAIS memory?
That's hard to say. There are so many of them. I remember one that we had that we had one student who was Malik. He was part of the Lebanese family, and he was the nephew, I think, of the ambassador at that time. And one night, we heard such screaming and yelling from the second floors of the school that we all rushed over there in our pajamas and, to see what was going on. Well, he did his prayers every, time during the day. And he was in bed, evidently, and somebody played a joke on him. They put a little lighter fluid from a lighter, they had them in those days, and they lit a match to it, and it went into his room. Well, he'd been in the military in Lebanon, and he just went ballistic. He was out there with his sword in one hand and a gun in the other, ready to get whatever had happened. And we got there. I guess we never did have the police come because everybody tried to quiet him down. But it was quite a bit of excitement. Yes. And I don't know if that's my most memorable one, but it was certainly one of the ones. I loved my professors, had good ones there. Since I already knew Spanish and French, I didn't have to take a language. In fact, I wanted to major in Russian. And however, I was on a scholarship. So I had to, they said, well, you've got more in the background in Spanish. You know French already from childhood. In England, you speak Spanish now. You've been going to the UN, And I said, yeah, but I'd like to do the other. And so, of course, I sort of got shifted into that. Yeah. And that became my area of expertise. But I never regretted it. I had Myron Bergen for one of my professors, and I can remember he was the economics. Economics was never my best subject. International law was my favorite. Political science. That's what I really had majored in high school, in college. I did my degree in that. But I do remember that he said to us, I used to get so discouraged, he said, with people sending me reports from overseas, because in the State Department. And he said, they'll always come and they'll say, well, it could be this way, or it could be this way. And they never give me an answer. And I keep writing them back and saying, what do you think? And he said, they'll never say one way or the other. And he said, if you ever get into anything, don't do that to people. And when all the time that I worked with the OAS, one of the things that I noticed that we were able to do, this is what we recommend. We were in a lot of places where the United Nations Economic Commission and Social Commission for Latin America, they never came to a decision. Well, if you do this, you'll do this. If you do this, you'll do that. They sometimes had 3 choices, but they never would say which was right, in their opinion. And so we would say, and I got to do that with all the people that I worked with. I said, this is what I think. Now, this is what I suggest for your country and your mission now. And this is what I think would be the lesser one. But you decide. But here are the choices, and this is what we feel. And we had much more success in our direct technical assistance programs than the UN ever had, it seemed. Because the UN, I remember talking with some Chileans one time. And they said, honest to God, if they would only tell us what they think is the better choice. That's what we're asking. And I said, well, you don't have to go with ours, but this is our choice.
And that's when you were with the OAS?
Pardon?
When you were with the OAS?
Yes. Yes. I found that in most everything I did, even when I've been teaching. And we come to things where the students, everybody has their own opinion, of course. And in international law, like in political science, international relations, there is no black or white. Most things are shades of gray. So I always tried to do that, and I said, look, you have to be true to yourself. You're the one that has to live with you. So you have to be true to yourself and always listen to everybody else's points of view and never say, if you say, well, I think this is quite correct, that's fine. But just don't attack people for the sake of attacking, as a lot of people tend to do. And as we're noticing right now, with all that's happened in this country. Yeah.
Is there one international law course at SAIS or professor that really stood out to you?
Yes, I was trying to think of, because I didn't look back at my class record,
Yeah.
but the professor that we had for international law was very good. He'd written a lot of things, and if you looked up his name, I'm sorry if I pulled out my, list of courses, I could tell you. But I remember Myron Bergen because he was such a down-to-earth person. And even when I started going, I worked with the State Department as a public member. I'm a public member on their evaluation and promotion boards. And not when he was there. I mean, he passed away long before that. But I always remembered, him because he was such a good example of a Foreign Service officer. And when I came back from Ecuador, I thought that I might go into the Foreign Service. Because, it seemed a logical thing to do. But once again, I was a girl. And I passed the exams then were 3 days. I did 2 languages, just Spanish and French. And I passed them. And then when I came, I went to the morning at their, their health place. And I was going through all that. I have asthma. I've had it all my life. And I went in. I had to go in to meet them finally. They had never seen who number 6 or whatever was. So when I went in to talk with them, then they knew I was a girl. And they said that, to come back after lunch. And they would tell me, they'd let me know what they were offering me. And they offered me a file clerk's job. And I said, I don't think I'll take it. And I went back to the doctor. And I said to the doctor, I said, I have asthma, but I said, it's so bad. I'm not going to be able to go anywhere, I'm afraid. And he said, oh, they saw you were a girl, huh? And he said, I've lost more good potential people for that very reason. So now when I've been on evaluation promotion boards, I'm always glad to see that there are women. And I think I'm going to have to take a little bit of water. Yeah, if that's all right with you all. Support. This is out of the sink because I just reused the bottle.
That's great.
So there were just 8 of you?
And there were
at
8
SAIS?
girls
8 of
and
you.
40 boys. And that year, 2 of us, myself and one other girl, graduated. And I think it was 12 or 14 boys graduated. And everybody else had to go on longer to get their degree.
Wow.
Well, I can't tell you when I graduated from SAIS, because I was looking here I graduated from SAIS in 52. Went in 1951, graduated in 1952. Then I did my doctorate in Ecuador in international law. And what I specialized in, of course, was, as I said, and I guess American consular and private international law. I got my degree in 1953. Oh, and Roman law, that's right. Oh, God, how could I forget that?
How did you choose Ecuador?
Pardon?
How did you choose Ecuador?
Oh,
as the
well,
software version?
when I first started going to the UN, I met some people there. A fellow that was from Ecuador originally, and I met his family and his sister, and we became good friends. And I wrote my thesis for the international law one on the Ecuadorian-Peruvian boundary dispute, because I thought that's a fascinating thing. And I tell you, I was favoring Ecuador because I remember when I read about it, just before the Second World War, Peru and Ecuador it was only recently, in about the last 10 years, that they finally settled on the boundary. But the boundary ran along a river that came from the mountains. And so it depended on how much water it was, which way it went, when they finally got that far along in it. And that was just, I think, 1941, something like that. And I had one of the students with me in class, in the advanced class, because I had to take Roman law, because I hadn't had it. I'd had Latin in high school. But, of course, it didn't count. And my professor there was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Ecuador. And he taught the Roman law course in Latin. And it was interesting. Let me put it that way. And so my other professors were the prime ministers, and one of them was the prime minister of Ecuador. And the thing is that my maiden name is Eastman. Eastman Kodak, none of the money. And I found that I went to Ecuador, and I got in with a family through the people that I knew in Guayaquil. And I was out walking first day or so, and I had people going by, the Indians there in Quito, and they would always step off the sidewalk, which upset me, but that, what could you do? That was custom. And they'd say to me, "Ay, bendita que sea la ñata Eastman." And I thought, how the hell do they know my name? Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out there's an Eastman family in Ecuador. They look, the father at that time, and even more in recent years, looked like my mother's oldest brother. So much like him that they could have been twins. And everybody knew me because I looked like one of the daughters. And so, in fact, Galo Plaza, who became the Secretary General of the UN later, and was the president, or maybe he was president afterwards. I know that when I was there, I worked with his son for local English because he needed that coming here. He was a teenager, and that was really hard for him coming to the United States. But Galo Plaza's mother was an Eastman. So I kept running into it, you see. But I had no idea before I went down there. I never thought I'd find relatives. And it was so interesting, to meet them. But anyway, yeah, how did I get off on that? Talking about the school,
fantastic.
I guess.
I know.
And the classes there. Yeah, it was quite an experience.
Yeah.
I was the only girl there that was not Ecuadorian. There was no other woman in the advanced classes. Nobody. And it got to the point that when I came back, I had gotten so far away from English. I wrote home. I talked with my mother once on New Year's Day. And that's the only time I ever spoke English practically there. And I came back, and for a while I walked around with a little small dictionary because I had to look up the word to know what it was that I was asked. Oh, to buy things like dental, toothpaste. It was Colgate there. And when I went the first time to buy something like that, I started to argue with the man about what he was charging me because I was so used to bargaining. My mother said, "Please stop." I said, "I'm sorry, I keep forgetting," because I got so into it. I was very happy there. I mean, I enjoyed it. And I've been back through Ecuador since, for some of the meetings of the Inter-American Bar. And I even went back once or twice I went back to see the school and stuff and, so forth. And the family in Ecuador. So it was interesting.
Wonderful.
As I say, I did my doctorate there, and then I came back. I applied with the OAS and got in there. And I spent 28 years with them, roughly. I didn't get my 30-year pin by a small amount, But I did a lot of different things there, and as I say, I kept very much in touch with SAIS. And we did that study, and we went back and tried to pick up all the women that had graduated. And it was probably somewhere in the 50s. If you wanted to look it up, and if you could find it, I'd love to have a copy of it, because I don't know where it is in my stuff, in case you should find it. Because we felt that it was important to trace the history of the women at SAIS. And of course now we have some more outstanding women in SAIS. So that maybe, I don't know if there's something else you think of that, as I say, I don't know whether this should go into your history, but Friday nights or Saturdays, we would have a party over at SAIS, and we'd have pictures of martinis and Manhattans, and it was how how to get drunk, I guess was that boys felt this way, how to get drunk and not give away State Department secrets. And we had a very nice bunch of people, they were all good. In fact, one of them, a friend of his came to visit him. He was from Texas. And I remember when he saw snow, he went really out of his mind. He'd never seen it. And he was out there making snow angels and everything. And a friend eventually came to see him that was being posted to Ecuador. And I actually saw him down there. But I think the American embassy at that time, and it's improved quite a bit, I know, since then. The ambassador didn't speak Spanish. There were three. That friend of the student that I met, who was going down there. The Marine sergeant spoke Spanish, and the consul spoke Spanish. He'd been in Latin America 20 years, and he was being posted someplace like in Thailand, And I said, boy, they're going to miss you. And I really had nothing to do. The only thing that came to me was my mail came there. And I didn't have anything to do with the embassy. And in fact, I was not well impressed with them. I was not well impressed when I went to Peru on my spring break. And I went down I had a scholarship from Pan American Airways. So that on the way down, because they were overbooked, I got put off the plane in Cartagena, or I would never have been in Cartagena for that. And I remember they finally had to let me they would pay for my hotel because I was a student. I'd worked in a factory during the summer to get money to go down there. And then I got there and, have either of you been to Colombia or any? Okay. Well, you know the valley that goes up to Cartagena. Well, once they found out that I was a student on a scholarship of theirs, they let me come up, to the cabin and stuff. And the captain said, come on up and sit in, what do you call it, the assistant, the co-pilot, thank you. Sometimes words don't come in any one of the languages I know. And he said, sit in his seat, and he said, take the wheel, and hold it. Now he said, you want to keep it focused on this point. So I thought he was just, letting me do it. And then one of the girls came back and said, so-and-so wants to speak with the captain. Would you go back, please? So he said, I'll be right back. And he went, and I'm happily going along, keeping an eye on it because you had to keep the wings even, and I thought, well, And then one of the girls came in. She took one look at me. She looked up at something. She said, the automatic isn't on. I said, the automatic what? She said, the automatic pilot. I said, you mean I'm flying? She said, yeah, and don't stop now. I said, I'm not going to stop. Just get somebody in here, please. I mean, you couldn't have got away with this these days.
No way.
And then I used to go, because the Air Force in Quito was very, I know what I was going to tell you about. One of the reasons why I picked Quito, too, was they were so outnumbered by the Peruvians. And the Ecuadorian Air Force, at the time that this happened, back in the original time that they tried to set up the line, the frontier, the Ecuadorians had 5 Piper Cubs, and the Peruvians had bought old airplanes through Canada from the United States. So it wasn't very fair, whatever they did, But anyway, I'm glad I went to Ecuador. I'm glad I went down to Peru. I got to Machu Picchu. By that time, I nearly didn't get out of Peru, or rather go back to Ecuador to finish, because Ecuador and Peru always seem to be breaking relations. So the ambassador had been put out in the Peruvian embassy. He was non grata. And the Ecuadorian one in Peru was non grata. So I blithely go down there and, go around the countryside. And when I came back and tried to sign up to go back to Quito or to study, I was told that they wouldn't give me an exit permit. So I went to the American Embassy because I'd been a good kid. I was told to go to the embassy, sign in when you get in there. I signed in. So I went back to them and I said, can you help me? And they said, we can't do anything. We can send you back to the United States through Brazil. I said, I'd love to see Brazil, but thank you. No, I have to go back. So I went to the Ecuadorian embassy. And the third secretary had finished in my graduate school just a few years before that. So he said, I'll find out what the problem is. Because I said, I don't know, I've just been a tourist here. But they didn't have a student ID. They had to give me a regular ID and mark that it was student, because they didn't have students going there to school. And so what he found out was that they thought I was a spy for Ecuador, because she has an Ecuadorian name, Eastman. She speaks like an Ecuadorian, because I did. I mean, I still every now and then, when I'm talking with Ecuadorians, if they're from Quito, I find I'm going, sí, no, pues, cómo no, stuff like that. Nobody in Guayaquil would do that, or anywhere else in the country, I guess. So I finally got them to straighten it out. The Ecuadorian embassy helped me go back.
Right.
Because I had my trunk with all my books, all my clothes, everything.
Oh.
So it was an experience.
Sounds like it. Oh.
If we were to ask you what historians would want to know about your career and accomplishments, what would you tell historians? What would you want historians to record?
Yeah. Well, I guess that thanks to my education and the experience that I got with the people that I knew there and the teachers, and that would include going back to my high school, and high school, no, probably my college in East Orange, because my political science professor was the leading authority at the time of the Reichstag fire. So Dr. Reuter, the Jewish underground, got him out because Hitler was going to kill him. And he always said, arm Germany if they can't fire at you. But anyway, so there, SAIS, I had excellent ones, and I'm trying to remember my law professor, that's terrible. And then when I went to Ecuador, I was so glad that I did that. And I think that since then I've worked with the Organization of American States for many years, and in various areas. I found out really that most people in the world, and then I've traveled around the world. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Russia, most of the Scandinavian countries, most of Europe, a lot of places in Africa. And the major thing I have found is that everyone is a human being. Everyone, if you respect them and treat them like nicely as you would like to be treated, and we can't practice the golden rule. I even extend that to aliens, because since I am interested in international law that way, space law, there is a type of agreement which they have come out with, which says that you should treat people, the golden rule says, do unto others as you would have others to do unto you. Well, that's fine for all humans. But if you're going to meet aliens, do unto others as they would have done unto them. Slight change. Mental law is where you find that. And I think that if you treat people and you, I've had Muslims tell me that they're sorry I'm not a Muslim. That happened in Tunis a few years ago. I have been in Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. I've been all along, a lot of places along the Silk Route. I've been Tibet. I've been Mongolia. I liked Mongolia. I'd like to go back again to Mongolia. I haven't spent a lot of time. I've been to Japan, extensively, except when I've gone to like Thailand or someplace like that. And I still have places I want to go in Dubai and the other ones in the Middle East, because I've been to Israel. I've been to Jordan. I've been to Egypt. I just don't find that there's a reason why, if we try, we can't get along. But we have to realize that other people's points of view and their religious and cultural backgrounds and their language will say different things. One of the things that I have always thought that's fascinating, I studied Russian afterwards because I didn't give up on that. And the Russian language is very indicative of how they are, because part of it has a present and a future, but no past. And the passive has a past, but no future and no present. You know, I mean, it's then, well, that's not exactly correct, but I mean, the thing is, language tells you so much. And do you speak Spanish?
I used to speak it fluently. That doesn't change.
Yeah, and you? Spanish or? Yes. And Italian?
Yes.
Well, now there are things that you can say in Italian that you can't say in Spanish.
Absolutely.
Or do you know another language, French or German?
Spanish and Italian, yeah.
Pardon?
It's the same, Spanish and Italian as
Okay.
well, yeah. But I'm not nearly as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the thing is that there's a word in Portuguese which I can find no translation for in any language, saudade. And it means nostalgia, it means that feeling that if you wake up in the morning and you feel like there's something that you forgot, just before you woke up there was something there. It's like that. It's everything that has to do with more than nostalgia. And yet there are other expressions in Spanish which are much better than ours. You learned ojalá. You both know that, right? Well, when I was teaching Spanish in the high school here when I first came back, I was teaching, and we had visitors from one of the international centers. And I was trying to teach my 4th period class. I don't forget that one. They were so bad. And I was trying to teach them the subjunctive. And I just said, ojalá. And in walked this man with the principal. And he said, Salam alaikum, and off he goes in Arabic. And the students woke up, you know. That is the one thing they never got wrong. One thing. So, teaching is an experience too. You know, it's great. And I never would have thought I would have done it. Would have gone into it, but I have, and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
because
That actually flows perfectly into our next question. I know. What advice would you have for today's students at SAIS? What advice would you have for today's
students?
Yeah.
To go with an open mind, be prepared to accept everybody, whether you like them or not personally, and whatever their culture is, and whatever their language is. Just try to understand them while you're still true to yourself. You must never not be true to yourself. And from what I've seen, when I've been there to things, the students are still very good. They're also very active, and I've enjoyed going to the different things. I go to some of the meetings. I always get all the ones in, but I can't get to them now. It's more difficult for me to do it. But I would say there's so much to learn. And I used to say when I was a child that when I go to heaven, it better be a big library, because I've got so much to learn. And I think we all do. Yes. So thank you both for coming too. I probably bored you to death.
No,
Absolutely
that
not.
was fascinating.
Complete opposite.
That was wonderful.
I could stay here for 5 more hours and listen to you.